Okay, everybody. I'm not starting yet. I'm just gonna wait till we get everybody in here. Um, so I haven't tested Brown channel yet. I think that works. I don't know why my camera can't work. Did you guys try the blue? And I just can't believe why they didn't. Not working on those channels. Huh. But chat's working on this one. Okay, me myself and I, thanks for letting me know about that. But yeah, we got the one channel working, but no camera right now. But we did a show on this one earlier today, so one channel at a time, I guess. We're not having the camera on, but him. So the other day, Thursday night or something, did anybody hear about a stabbing outside the White House? There was a stabbing last week. I wonder what was going on. Okay. Worship session. Hopefully we'll get everybody in here tonight. Kay and Mary and Marla, or I think it's Marla, the new people came in. Lucy, are you out there? Carol, Dave? Children's textbooks. It is in your stained glass windows. Look at it. Bless you. Go get it. We'll stand by for about 5 more minutes. What? You get it? That's Chico's ball. Hey. Huh? Gloria, yeah, my camera's off right now, but we did a show finally this afternoon, and we had a good show. Probably get 2 hours in for tonight, but my other channels, I don't know. Hopefully, I can get the brown one going. Okay, we're going to start a little bit early, so go ahead and get going on the first intel. Okay,
how or when the U.S. ever gets to the
10
point of an
minutes.
actual constitutional crisis. It's a phrase that some in Washington and beyond like to throw around amidst a host of legal challenges to the new administration. Joining us now is the person at the helm of most of those legal fights, Attorney General Pam Bondi. Welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Glad to have you. So let's start there. Is there any scenario in which the president gets an order or a final judgment from the Supreme Court in which he doesn't agree with it and he doesn't comply?
No, the president is going to comply with the law. He was overwhelmingly elected by an overwhelming majority of the United States citizens to be our commander in chief. And that's what he's been doing. Shannon, just since January 20th, we've had over 170 lawsuits filed against us. That should be the constitutional crisis right there. 50 injunctions. They're popping up every single day, trying to control his executive power, trying to control where he believes our tax dollars should be allocated. And saying he won by an overwhelming majority is so important because that's what the American people want. What President Trump campaigned on and what he won on. And he's implementing that agenda at a rapid speed. None of us can keep up with them every single day. And so it's just, we're going after all of these lawsuits. We're defending them all. We just got a great win and we'll continue to fight every day.
You did. Friday night, 5-4 at the Supreme Court. You got a win with respect to cuts to the Department of Education. But the court did go against you on issues of foreign aid being paid out. How do you think these issues of executive power, when they get to the court, ultimately on the merits, will go? Because you know the court has told executives no when it comes to things like student loans or recess appointments.
Sure. I think we're going to be very successful on all these. So the one you just brought up, the DEI, that was Department of Education. So we represent all the various agencies, and all of these 170 lawsuits have to do with all the agencies across the board. This particular one, though, was very important because the court said that President Trump can control where our tax dollars go and what they're allocated for. And we do not have to spend them on DEI. And that's what was happening. So the ramifications of that are huge for our country, and that impacts every single agency. to give you an example of a case, Department of Defense. So it's military readiness, and that's one of the president's top agendas, as is Pete Hegseth. So in the district court, a district court in DC ruled against us on military readiness, meaning gender dysphoria, ruled against us. We appealed that to the circuit court and we won. The second we won, within minutes, Shannon, in California, they filed an identical lawsuit and we lost. So that's what we're up against. It's basically a game of whack-a-mole with these district court judges around the country who have a tremendous amount of power. They believe they do, but that's why we're appealing all of these cases, of course, up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, they're very busy. So you have several things that are sitting there now. So while you had the win on Friday night, a lower court judge on Friday night ruled against you with respect to, and I'm going to read this because I want to make sure I get his name right, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, who is somebody who was living in Maryland. He was under an order not to be deported because of fears or danger that he may face back in El Salvador. The government has admitted there was an error in deporting him. But this judge has said you've got a deadline midnight Monday to get him back from El Salvador. There have been allegations that he is a gang member, that he's involved in human trafficking. This is what the judge said. That's just chatter in my view. I haven't been given any evidence in a court of law when someone is accused of membership in such a violent and predatory organization. It comes in the form of an indictment, a complaint, a criminal proceeding that has robust process so we can assess the facts. So would it be helpful in making your case, not only to the court, but in the court of public opinion, to show what you have explaining these allegations against him?
Yeah, and to explain to you, ICE has testified, members of ICE, that he is an MS-13 gang member. And the defense, his lawyers, have argued, well, he should be here because he was studying to be an electrician. Well, let me give you a comparison. I was just in our home state of Florida this week, where we arrested 3 MS-13 gang members. These 3 it was a cold case, 10 years old. They are charged with violently stabbing an individual over 100 times as part of their gang initiation. One was arrested in Fort Lauderdale. One was arrested. He fled to Minnesota. Great police work, FBI, all of the agencies together. Border Patrol even caught him. One there. And then the other, ready for this, was a drywall hanger in the Villages in Florida. Hanging drywall. So the argument that because these people are living among us, these illegal aliens from El Salvador, means they're not part of a gang. That's how they're hiding. That's how they're succeeding. Last week, the days all run together. Last week, we were in half an hour from here, from where we're sitting right now in Virginia, and arrested another extremely violent gang member. He was the leader for the East Coast, one of the top 3 leaders for our entire country. And this guy was living in Virginia in a nice neighborhood. There were wreaths on the door. There were children's bicycles outside his neighbor's home. That's so frightening. And that's how they insulate themselves. So we have to rely on what ICE says. We have to rely on what Homeland Security says. They're our clients. And I firmly believe in the work they are doing, and we're going to make America safe again. That was President Trump's directive to all of us.
So Abrego Garcia, though, was not charged with any of these things, stabbings, murders, anything. No. He was never charged or convicted with anything. So is there a missed opportunity there for the government with this order to bring him back? Even if you could, if you did, would he then face charges here?
Well, yeah, and our jails are full of people. We want to send these people out of our country when possible. When we have charges of violent murder, we're going to keep the ones that are here. We're going to keep them here. We're going to charge them. We're going to prosecute them. The one in Florida I just mentioned, we had the victims' families in court with us, and that gives them closure. But the best thing to do is to get these people out of our country. And when that first plane left and landed in El Salvador, there were 261 reasons why Americans were safer. We have to look out for the safety of our country first and foremost, and that is Donald Trump's directive, and we're going to continue to do that.
Is there a reason that the attorney who argued this case on Friday has been put on suspension? Is it because you don't think he zealously advocated enough? Did he mishandle the case? I mean, he had to admit, as has been done in this pleading, the government made a mistake in deporting this guy.
So it's a pending matter right now. He was put on administrative leave by Todd Blanche on Saturday, and I firmly said on day one, I issued a memo that you are to vigorously advocate on behalf of the United States. Our client in this matter was Homeland Security, is Homeland Security. He did not argue. He shouldn't have taken the case. He shouldn't have argued it. If that's what he was going to do, he's on administrative leave now. But yes, you have to vigorously argue on behalf of your client. As lawyers, we know that. That would be a defense attorney walking in, conceding something in a criminal matter. That would never happen in this country. And so he's on administrative leave now, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, I want to try to get to some other cases. The death penalty this week, you announced that you want the prosecution to seek that with Luigi Mangione, accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Midtown Manhattan. Politico reacted to that with this line: "How Trump loses Gen Z." I was in an airport a couple of weeks ago with a young woman that had on a sweatshirt with his face on it, and he was portrayed as a religious icon. There was a halo, kind of like a saint.
That's Chico Wyden.
What's your take on how the younger generation sees him as a bit of a folk hero, and Politico's assessment that it may cost you politically?
Shannon, the president's directive was very clear. We are to seek the death penalty when possible. And, you know, it hadn't been done in 4 years. I was a capital prosecutor. I tried death penalty cases throughout my career. If there was ever a death case, this is one. This guy is charged with hunting down a CEO, a father of two, a married man, hunting him down and executing him. Yeah, I feel like these young people have lost their way. I was receiving death threats for seeking the death penalty on someone who is charged with an execution of a CEO. We're going to continue to do the right thing. We're not going to be deterred by political motives. You know, I've seen a protester walking down the street here, "Free Luigi." I mean, this guy's charged with a violent crime, and we're going to seek the death penalty whenever possible.
Okay, another headline. There's chatter about President Trump seeking a third term. He has said, quote, "There are methods." Is this just one of his epic trolls? Or does he, or do you believe there is a method short of amending the Constitution by which he could seek a third term?
President Trump has served one full term. He's on his second full term. He's a very smart man, and I wish we could have him for 20 years as our president, but I think he's going to be finished probably after this term.
Probably.
Well, the Constitution we'd have to look at the Constitution.
It would be a heavy lift, and whether you get 2/3 of the Senate and House to go along with you, but is the concession that that's really the only way to do it?
It'd be a heavy lift.
Okay. That was this afternoon on Sunday features. We got a few short ones here. Anybody see this? That was Disney, I believe, on Friday. Or the 4th.
It wasn't normal. I told these people. Everyone's like, what? That is. I looked on that stage. Me too. I told them, I was like, it's not normal. It's already.
I knew California was warm, but I think that's a little too warm.
Someone's getting ready.
Someone's gonna be upset.
They're probably already inside the car.
You're good.
We're good. We're good.
The entire garage is filled with smoke.
So that was interesting. I don't know if anybody caught that on the 4th. Okay, going on to the next one.
with an intense beam of light and has pinpoint accuracy. It's able to hit something the size of a £1 coin from a kilometre away.
So we've been talking about the cost of firing a laser weapon to be £10 a shot. And really all we're talking about is the cost of the energy that you need to fire the laser weapon. Obviously, once you've got the system in place in the first place. And that compares very favorably with missiles, which might be thousands or tens of thousands or even more per single shot.
Scientists say Dragonfire proved itself in testing in Scotland and has the potential to transform the UK's defence capability. It could be used on land or sea and would remove the reliance on high-cost ammunition.
Drones are a really good example of the kinds of targets that a laser weapon would be very effective against. And certainly in our demonstrations, drones are one of the targets that we've successfully engaged on a number of occasions at really useful ranges.
Britain isn't alone in developing this technology. Militaries around the world see the advantage, like Israel, which has Iron Beam, designed to destroy short-range objects too close for the Iron Dome system.
We don't like to compare Dragonfire too specifically with what's being done in other countries because they have their own research programs which we're not privy to. But what I would note is that the Dragonfire technology that we've designed is UK bespoke technology, which is owned by us and can be used by us in support of generating laser weapons for our own platforms in future.
Dragonfire is now back from Scotland and will potentially be involved in further trials. Claire Sadler, Forces News.
Okay, that was an interesting video. Moving along here. One minute.
Of technology way better than they let us see, well then what's better than this? I'll get to that in a second, but first what you need to know is they practice their technology on us and see if we're smart enough to know that that's a hologram. So when they use their holograms in different ways, they know if we're going to be able to tell the difference or not. And now back to our what could possibly be better robotic technology than that, because that looks pretty good. And let me first start off by saying what it's not. It's not this. A lot of people thought this was real, but that is just a woman playing the part and doing a really good job. But that's what they also like to do, muddy the waters, so we don't know the difference. Now here's where the speculation comes in. I've done some videos on these guys, but this isn't that type of video where I say one is playing the other. Oh no, this is the video where I say, I think Keanu is literally a robot in this premiere of Sonic the Hedgehog. Why don't we first listen to what Jim has to say about playing this role?
Now, a lot of people said, I don't know if you should do the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, Jim. And I thought, you know what? It's the perfect character on the dawn of the AI and robotic revolution, you know? And I'm right in the zeitgeist right now. I'm in a sweet spot.
Now, on top of looking completely lifeless here at this premiere, I want you to look at how he's moving. And as you watch his robotic, lifeless movements, I want you to also keep in mind what Jim said about being at the zeitgeist of the AI robotic movement. Now, I know Keanu is known for not being the sharpest tool in the shed, but this looks like something different to me. Now pay particular attention to how his hands move and just how robotic he seems.
You and Jim Carrey.
I met him I met him socially in passing once, like 6-7 years ago. But then really just hanging out for the first time in London at the premiere of Sonic 3, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And 2024 is coming to a close. Do you have anything on your bucket list for 2025?
I don't want to do bucket lists. I don't want to kick buckets. I don't want to put anything in the bucket.
Chris, just
No.
start a little bit early.
Literally
Sorry.
misses
You know
his
me.
face where he's going to itch here.
I always
That
start
seems
different
off.
times.
And how he waves seems off. Like he's not human.
Still no camera yet.
Now, like I said, this is pure speculation. I could be 1,000% wrong here, but I'll tell you one thing I know I'm not wrong about. The fact that they want us confused. They don't want us to be able to tell the difference between robotic and real life. And like I said, I think they intentionally muddy the waters to keep us confused because they claim these are robotics, and I think these are actually just actresses again. Now, like I said, I could be wrong, and that could just be Keanu being a goof, but I would almost guarantee that we probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference between real and robotics based on the technology they have and the technology they're keeping hidden from us. But of course, this is all entertainment. I know that Jim and Keanu definitely aren't the same people.
That one was on Rumble. He does another good video there. And here's another one from that one lady, Australia lady. Remake.
This will impact millions of people. But what I can't comprehend nor sympathise with is the fact that any world leader is surprised. Donald Trump is not exactly backwards in going forwards. He's not what you'd describe as subtle. What I'm trying to say is if a nation hasn't anticipated and planned, even well before the election, then they have failed their people, not Donald Trump. The entire premise of his campaign was America first. And yes, Americans will feel the brunt in some ways, but overall they will as a nation benefit, incredibly so. The correction will come and the shift back to homemade will be significant. The stock market will recover and the working class will boom. That's the point. The US president has also had immense success with tariffs already. Look at Mexico and Canada. They are a very powerful bargaining chip. Trump's perspective on doing the vast amount of heavy lifting in any relationship is well known. He hates it passionately and has been very vocal about it. Yes, many countries have been lulled into a false sense of security, but that's no excuse to have allowed yourselves to be completely reliant on another nation. This wake-up call has been a long time coming. And as far as appropriate responses from world leaders go, well, each to their own. But a suggestion, if you'll indulge me. Verbal barrages and petulant outbursts won't work. Not with this US president. Now, I'm not saying be weak and just roll over and take it. He won't respect that either. But be smart. Be reasonable. Come to the table with something good. He's the king of the deal. Make him one he can't refuse. The more we, each individual nation, make ourselves, the safer we will all be. These tariffs will lessen the US reliance on foreign supply chains and prioritise national security at the same time. And until other nation states can handle every existing and emerging global threat on their own without American help, this is a win-win despite a bit of short-term discomfort. That's it for 69X Minutes, where the real stories, they always get told. I'm Erin Molan.
Okay, another good video. Got the TikTok lady, and then after that one, I got Derek Johnson. Oh, wait. I got to switch over. Where is it? Hang on. All right, I found it. About 5 minutes.
Happens is entirely dependent on you. So I'm going to explain all about that in a second. But first, I want to thank my paid Facts HQ subscribers for voting for this story as the bonus this week. It is because of their support that I am able to continue to do this work and make these videos for you. So if you want to join them and support my work, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. There are a bunch of other perks like exclusive content, access to a group chat with me, and subscriber-only live events. Plus, of course, you get to vote on next week's bonus story. And if you don't want to be a paid subscriber, you can also support my work by just becoming a free subscriber, and then you will get my daily Facts HQ newsletter, which is an excellent resource. So make sure you sign yourself up. Okay, let's get into this debt ceiling stuff. Quick refresher. The debt ceiling is the legal limit on the amount of money the federal government can borrow to pay its existing bills, not its new bills. I'm talking about the bills Congress already racked up. One party is not responsible for the $36 trillion of debt the US government already has on the books. We got to that number as a result of both parties over decades. And when we hit the debt ceiling, the Treasury Department cannot borrow any more money, but the bills keep coming in. You know how it works at your house. Just because you don't pay a bill doesn't mean it disappears. It doesn't just go away. Ultimately, if you don't pay that bill, you will default on that debt, and that's when the real problems start for you. Same for the federal government. It's very important to understand raising or suspending the debt ceiling does not just authorize new spending. Raising or suspending the debt ceiling just allows the Treasury Department to borrow what it needs to pay the bills that Congress already approved. Now, technically, we already hit the debt ceiling back in January 2025, but the Treasury Department has been taking what are known as extraordinary measures, basically creative accounting, robbing Peter to pay Paul, to avoid a catastrophic debt default. But those extraordinary measures can only go on for so long. And now the Congressional Budget Office just released its report for how long those extraordinary measures can last and when the debt default is actually going to happen. The soonest it could happen, according to the CBO, is late May, early June. And the latest would be August or September. Now, I know you're probably thinking, what the hell, man? Why can't they be more specific? Because of you. Yes, you. That crash up against the debt ceiling exact date cannot be determined until the Congressional Budget Office sees how much money in revenue the IRS collects in your tax money. Once that number is determined, they can do all the complicated math to figure out when the debt default will happen. So if the IRS does not collect enough tax money from all of us, that default will come sooner in May. And if the IRS collects more tax money, then the default would come later in August or September. Make sense? P.S. I will email that debt ceiling report from the CBO out in my next Facts HQ email. So again, I told you it's a good resource. Make sure you sign yourself up. Now, I'm not going to go into the catastrophic consequences of the United States defaulting on our debt and what it would mean for you and me in this video. I have a bunch of other videos that runs down the scenario. But the bottom line is,
When combined with this current economic situation we find ourselves in with the tariffs, which the Federal Reserve has already said will cause more inflation, shrink the GDP, and possibly invite a recession, adding a debt default to that would be a dumpster fire within a dumpster fire within a crap sandwich that a dog peed on. Too graphic? So what can anyone do to stop the United States from defaulting on this debt or even hitting the debt ceiling? Well, Congress has three options. They can increase the debt ceiling, they can suspend the debt ceiling, or they can get rid of the debt ceiling altogether. The option the Republican-controlled House and Senate has now agreed on at the direction of President Trump is to increase the debt ceiling somewhere between $4 and $5 trillion. We will not know for sure what that number is until the Republican-controlled House and Senate can pass a joint budget resolution. That process is ongoing right now. I will keep you posted on that. But they have to hurry because according to that Congressional Budget Office report that I'm talking about, the potential debt default window opens up in just a few weeks at the end of May. So we will get an official, what's called X date. That's the real default date from the Treasury Department after all the taxes have been returned on April 15th.
Are you sure your tax expert is right for you?
Okay, our TikTok lady today. That was another good one. And we got DJ up.
'76. What's up, y'all? Dear Johnson here, also known as Rattletrap 1776. So I'm pretty sure you probably already seen President Trump's New Truth post about the operation is over, the patient lived, the patient is healing. Well, the patient he's talking about is United States of America because, you know, a guy like me who's a retired veteran, all right, who went globally viral August 24, 2022. That was no mistake whatsoever. Also have my press credentials, DOD, etc. All right. So I've been telling you for the past 3 years that we've been in a military government, military occupation, special operation, unconventional warfare, clandestine operations, covert operations. It's all lawful. There's 4 ways that military pairs with federal. That's executive orders, treaties, proclamations, and national emergencies. That's why it's very important to know the 3 branches of government and how they operate. Article 1, your legislative branch. Article 2, your executive branch. And Article 3, your judicial branch. So all these things have played out right in front of you. Watch literally the Declaration of Independence happen right in front of you. You have literally watched a resetting of the foundation that is prescribed in the Declaration of Independence, where it says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, right? So, you know, it's all part of the operation. And that operation is outlined on President Trump's ball cap that he put there. He put that there, that dash. He put the dash between 45 and 47. He did that April the 2nd, 2023. So see how all these are correlating? And April the 2nd this year, he said, was our Liberation Day. All right. And now he's saying that the operation's over. Well, if you go look in history, all right, he had given you markers all along the way, and he said that Memorial Day 2025 was one of the big markers that we'll start celebrating. Well, Memorial Day this year is May 26th. All right. May 26th, 1783 was the day that our founders marked a celebration day called the Jubilee Day. All right. The end of the Revolutionary War. So, you know, that's why I told you from the get-go, I'm not going to tell you who not to listen to, but this is why it's very important for you moving forward to realize what you went through, what you've been through, what you've experienced, and then also, you know, to empower yourself. You know, there's so many people out there. We're in a social media world. They just want to be a name and a face. Most of them for the wrong reasons. Not all of them, but most of them for the wrong reasons just want to be a name and a face. But they don't know on the front side. They don't know on the front. They're not a problem solver. They don't have the IQ to, you know, well, I wouldn't say attain. They could attain it if they try, but they don't have the IQ to hold the capacity of what I've been holding and been telling everybody. That's why I have #1 best-selling books. Right now, this is just part 1, and this small part 2 is 596 pages that gets heavily into Title 10, Title 50, special operations, unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, clandestine operations, covert operations. It gets in depth like that, but it also outlines how they pull this off. All right, lawfully, ethically, morally, etc. All right. So again, some people know on the front, some don't. Some people have a good heart and they have good motives, but they're still not problem solvers on the front. And they end up regurgitating. But when they end up regurgitating, they end up leaving something out, or it's confusing the people. And then when it confuses some people quit and give up. Versus if there's someone there consistent, as President Trump's been for the past 40 and 50 years, he's been consistent. And then people like me from the get-go saying, look, it's a lot of information. It's going to require a lot of reading, a lot of studying, a lot of listening. But if you really want to know, there's a blueprint in place. There's a chronological order of laws and orders. And then a guy like me, what I did in this book and the other book was, this is basically a cliff note. So I took out all the economics and all the other stuff, infrastructure, those things. This is all straight up your military paired with your federal that outline this operation of how they drain the swamp effectively and efficiently. It's drained, all right, and how they've reset the currency, the Doge and what it's doing. Also your war on opioids, your war on fentanyl, all illicit drugs, and also the war on trafficking. All right, and how they've done all this at one time. So when you see something like that from President Trump, that's alluding to the whole operation. All right, he's not talking about just the win and, oh, we're doing good and, oh, we're going to do great. He's talking about this whole operation to drain all of the swamp, the global alliance, the bureaucrats. And the only way they could have done all this, the only way they could have done it without him ever being assassinated for real, all right, because he was the outsider who went up against the big machine. The only way that could have happened was the United States military via special operations, all right, the unconventional warfare. And that's why I talk about all the time the Special Operations Command publication, Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide. If you go to page 11 and look at the resistance pyramid, very important. So when you go back and look at the 1966 original resistance pyramid and compare it with the 2016, then do your math. That's 50 years. 50 years is a jubilee. All right. So all this has been divinely inspired. All right. God's been in ultimate control of the dates. And you can't make this stuff up. All right. So that's why people who have bought this in part 2, it's undeniable. It's undeniable. God, undeniable. Spiritual. All right. It's undeniable. We're going through a wake up, a great awakening. And, but it's also important for everybody to know what's taking place, to get on board with that, where you can be a contribution to the future. All right. And you can empower your friends and your family to be a contribution too, because this is not a Republican Democrat thing. Unfortunately, they had to use parties during this to get people's attention. But moving forward, it's going to be a whole lot different. So I would encourage you to follow my other pages, find my other accounts. My link tree is linktr.ee/1776 Nation. All right, that'll pull up all of my accounts, and you'll be able to find all my pages where I can post longer information, where you can actually click on links and go read and study .gov and .mil sites, and you can find all of the material that's there that's been put into place, again, by the United States military and also President Trump as a wartime commander, as a supreme commander. That's why he talks about Eisenhower all the time. Eisenhower was a supreme commander. He was a rare 5-star general. And then also he was known as the military governor. All right. So that's what this whole thing's been: military government, military occupation, continuity of government, continuity of operations, all in current invoked laws and orders. All right. That's why knowing how your country functions and operates is so important. All the other stuff, the propaganda, the drama, and all that's got to go. And it's going to go.
Okay, latest on DJ there. Next one is about 6 minutes. You guys, I'm not sure if I played it or not. You guys remember it?
Not only, of course, in the mainstream media who refuse to tell the truth about anything.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is...
You guys remember this one?
And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
And let me liken it to this. Say that you left your house tonight on a trip, and you came back a couple days later and you found that your house had been broken into. Okay? Well, you call the police, they come to your door, and you start asking them questions. You say, who did this? Do you know who did this? And they said, well, there were 2 burglars. And you say, all right, well, who were they? And they said, well, they drove a brown Chevy Impala. And you say, all right, well, who were they? And they said, well, they broke in at 11:37 last night. They wore black clothes and blue caps. And he's like, all right, well, who were they? And he said, well, they made their getaway on Elm Street. And you say, all right, I know all of this information. Who did it? They say, we're not going to tell you who did it. Well, I started to notice the same thing in the 9/11 Truth Movement, was that everybody was afraid to say who was actually behind these events. Now, they would say, oh, it was Bush Cheney. And, of course, Dick Cheney played a central role in this. But they refused to take it a step further and say who else was involved in it. And, Tex, if we want to confront and conquer evil, we have to have the courage to specifically address evil. If we're afraid to say who did 9/11, who's behind it, then what good is it? We can't arrest the people that did it. We can't convict them. We can't imprison them. So we can't keep talking about vague concepts like, well, it was the New World Order. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event. Our purpose was to document the event. Our purpose was to document the event.
That 9/11 was a good thing for Israel. 9/11 is a good thing.
There's also a guy named Ehud Sprinzak, who's a terrorist expert at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and he said, from the perspective of Israel, that 9/11 was the most important public relations act ever committed in their favor. Think of the monstrous evil of that. There's also another guy, Ami Ayalon, who's an Israeli military expert, and he said ever since September 11th, their leaders have been euphoric that America got it.
Someone else think it's a nice Jewish family? From the outside, you appear to be a nice Jewish girl. Definitely. And you all are worshiping the devil inside the home? Right. There's other Jewish families across the country, not just my own family. Really? So what kinds of things went on in the family? Well, there would be rituals in which babies would be sacrificed. Yeah, you witnessed the sacrifice. Right. When I was very young, I was forced to participate in that, in which I had to sacrifice an infant. And the purpose of sacrifice is to what? Is to bring you what? What are you sacrificing for? For power.
I have found that at the very heart and core of all these secret societies lurks the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is the ancient Jewish mysticism. It is a method of encoding information through a system of mathematics and numbers. It is some of the most ancient knowledge that man has ever possessed and has been kept secret and given only to those who have proven themselves worthy through the process of initiation. Nobody knows where it comes from. I can tell you this, it was there long before the Jews came along. The Jews just took it and preserved it, and they passed it down, and it's used by everybody.
Groups of people. These are all artificial constructions, and Judaism really teaches us how to see that. In a sense, our detractors have us right, in that we are a corrosive force. We're breaking down the false gods of all nations and all people because they're not real.
What do you guys think so far?
But despite the interest of Templars and Freemasons, the original temple begins with the Jewish people. The Second Temple was in existence during the time of Christ and the Apostles, but it would also be destroyed, a terrible event that Jesus himself had prophesied. The scripture says that the disciples came to show Jesus the buildings of the temple, and Jesus said unto them, See ye not all of these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that its desolation is nigh. And so it came to pass that the Second Temple was destroyed with the fall of Jerusalem in 70 A.D.
The idea of that temple is central to Freemasonry, the Knights Templar, and of this there is no doubt. They've all expressed it. All these arcane societies have let it be known that this is really ultimately a central goal. They seem to all gravitate toward there being a temple, a need for a temple, except Orthodox Muslims who say, no, we're the last religion. These buildings are fine, thank you very much. Become a Muslim and you can pray in them and hang out on the Temple Mount. Which is not going to happen, so that leads to a pretty ugly likelihood.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
Let's look at who they are. There's this entity called the Defense Policy Board, which is even more powerful than the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon. The Defense Policy Board runs the war machine. And some of the people on this board are Henry Kissinger, Elliot Cohen, Paul Wolfowitz, Douglas Feith, and Richard Pearl. Coincidentally, all Jewish. Also, some of the other ones are Kenneth Adelman, James Woolsey, and Newt Gingrich were Zionists. Now, within the White House itself, people that were influential in getting this war going, Scooter Libby, Delvin Backheim, David Wormser, Elliot Abrams, Daniel Pipes, Stephen Bryan, all Jewish again. What we have, Tech, is 9/11 was committed by Zionist elements within the United States government and also elements within the Israeli government. And the war right now that we have, this war on terror in Iraq and in Afghanistan, this is a Jewish war led by groups such as JINSA and AIPAC and the AEI, the American Jewish Committee, and the PNAC. This is a Jewish war led for Jewish motivations and Jewish gain.
Okay, I hope that was okay for everybody. I'm here, but okay. All right, get on to the next one here. I'll probably go like 2 hours, so we got another hour.
Yeah.
9 minutes.
Very haunted mansion vibes, right? Her eyes just moved. I know it. Her eyes just moved. This museum to the EPA is how your taxpayer dollars were spent. $4 million to build a gift from Joe Biden. Hey, EPA, gotta water your plants. There might not be any federal workers, but there is lots of chipping paint here inside the EPA. This better not be lead paint or asbestos. Did you guys know that Greta Thunberg has her own mural here in the EPA? We had no idea.
You all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
We have the Joe Biden Memorial and we have the Greta Thunberg. Okay, all right, I'm done. Wait a second. You ever had to use this? Is this the Doge bat? You can tell me.
So the difference is,
What's up, guys? We're here at the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C. The new administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, just discovered $20 billion that Joe Biden's administration shoved out the door. Gold bars on the Titanic, they called it.
Now it's just how to get the money out as fast as possible before they come in and it truly feels like on the Titanic or throwing like gold bars off the top net.
Where'd that money go? Are they protecting the environment around here? The grass looks kind of dead. I mean, I don't know. It's a little junky. There's quite a bit of litter. I don't know for the EPA. We're going to check in on the building here behind me. Is anybody home? What have they found? More importantly, what's Doge doing about all this? Seems like a nice building from the outside. Let's go check on what's going on the inside of the EPA today.
Welcome to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. We're going to go into the building here in just a moment, but here at the entrance, there's something of note. This is the EPA Museum and Educational Center. This cost $4 million to build, a gift from Joe Biden to the EPA.
In the arms of the angel.
We're walking through the 5-building complex for the EPA, tens of thousands of square feet. And as you walk through, you're able to look in and out of these offices. It's the middle of the day, in the middle of a work day, and there's no one here. Here, you can see the directory of everybody who's working today. There's been a problem with a little too much work from home that has created total ghost towns of the federal government buildings. And these buildings are incredibly expensive to maintain. But what you'll find is no one. Echo! Is anybody here? Is anyone home?
Yeah, that
worked in. Office tour. Come on in. Really vibrant in here. Gonna show you all of the things going on right now. There's empty mail cart. Hey, EPA, gotta water your plants, man. What's going on here? Look at this. Poor guy. It's kind of like a ghost town. Like there was a rapture. Like some of the offices still have shoes in them, but they you can tell they haven't been worn for like a decade. Everything else is gone. Nothing's been touched for 4 years since work from home started. Like an artifact, like Pompeii, right? Like,
everything is as it was, and it's just abandoned. This is the memorial, actually, to Joe Biden at the EPA, which we think is touching, and we're thankful for them for reminding us, actually, where we've come from. It's just a monster binder from the year 2000 that's just sitting here on a windowsill. It sure used a generous amount of paper. This is an entire tree. Does the EPA really need this many light bulbs to light the hallway? Really? 20 light bulbs per chandelier? Really? Could we do with a little less? Thank you. All right. And those better not be incandescent light bulbs. I swear.
I wish in some respects maybe I had a seatbelt on that chair. The government says we can't get out $20 billion on our own. We, the United States of America. Here's the difference between this Trump administration and maybe any other presidency. It doesn't take years to get to the bottom of it. Here we canceled a $50 million grant to Climate Justice Alliance. They say that climate justice is through a free Palestine. $50 million grant to them, canceled. $60 million going towards DEI and environmental justice, canceled. Over $1 million in media subscriptions that the EPA was paying for, canceled. There's something that's hitting different about the Trump presidency. I'm so excited about the years that are ahead. So I come in and I ask for the stat from the team. I want to know just how empty has this building been. This is a big, beautiful building, the highest single day of attendance since January of 2024. The record high attendance, 37%. On no day, at no point, were we at more than 37%.
Okay, so you talked about the empty building. Can we go see a little bit of it?
Let's do it.
All right.
It's not empty for long. We're telling everyone they need to come back.
That's right. This office, though, is, again, very impressive, man.
The Postmaster General built this office 1 square foot bigger than...
Wait a second. You ever had to use this? Is this the Doge bat? You can tell me.
So the difference is, you ever watch Walking Dead? This is how we know that this isn't a Doge bat. You know what's missing? The barbed wire. Yeah, so when Elon comes in, he'll probably wrap it with barbed wire, and then we'll put it back up.
I need you to know me. So, back to it. I'm just getting started.
Can we take a detour? Or just pop in?
If we were taking this tour about 4 hours ago, it wouldn't have been much fuller. But I look forward to the next time Benny Johnson comes to visit EPA, and this place is going to be hopping.
I'll be happy to do the difference, right? The difference an administration makes. So I had an anonymous complaint about the rust stains here, and some were saying it's not very EPA.
This is actually a big issue. There's a mice problem in the building. There's a whole lot of paint that needs to go up on walls. I actually want to fix this stuff up. And then, by the way, I think it impacts morale too. Sure. You know, if you have people who want to show up at work and this is their station, and you have to look at this every day, how excited are you going to be to go into your office?
Final question. What is it like having Trump as your boss?
Oh, he is so locked in right now. You know, it's one thing to have the experience of 4 years in the White House. It's another thing to have 4 more years to reflect on your first 4 years. You add July 13th and Butler on top of it, he is locked in. This is a man on a mission. When President Trump talks about ushering in a golden era of success for all Americans, it's something that I feel already. And there's this optimism in America where people know that the next day is going to be filled with more wins. Just how is it working with President Trump? It is awesome. I'm honored to be part of it. And we are so excited to deliver for the American public.
Mr. Administrator, that's a good motivation to show up in the office, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, we can all agree, environment is something we all have in common, right? It's like we all have to live here, so we might as well do our best to actually protect it, but be smart about it.
Yeah, amen.
It's great to have smart people in our government. It's amazing.
Well,
thank you for the tour. And we'll be back to show the full offices.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you.
They're doing a protest right now? No way.
So they're doing a protest right now against Elon Musk.
Well, very convenient for us. There's an anti-Elon Musk march right outside of the EPA. So we decided to join in. I mean, it's cold outside, right? A little interesting that the entire offices are empty. They're protesting on behalf of empty offices. It's your boy Benny. We out here at the EPA, place that these people are trying to save. Don't know why. See ya.
Okay, the first one, I got one more Benny. The chat must not be working. I hope the intel, you guys. Yeah, this is a little bit longer. 1 to 3 minutes.
Am I gonna get it for comparing you to Marine Le Pen?
No, not at all. Although I was laughing that you said blonde because I posted on X how this is pre-root touch-up day. So I'm a little bit less blonde than normal, but I promise next time
Yes,
I will
thanks,
be
Chris, for
fully
testing the
faithfully
chat.
blonde.
Okay, not a requirement for the show, Julie.
Yeah, I know.
All that's required is that you bring your absolute force of will to a topic like this that is the number one trending topic in the world right now. They accomplished what they tried to do against President Trump. They were successful in weaker nations in France. I just want to get off the top, like your take on this news.
I mean, just looking at this now, but this is what they are doing in alleged, democracies now, trying to imprison, especially conservatives, politicians on the right, throw them in jail, prevent them specifically here from being able to run for office. Now, that's exactly what they did here, right? With the 14th Amendment, saying that because allegedly Donald Trump participated in a so-called insurrection, that he should be prevented from holding public office. So this is precisely what the left, the organized left, Marxists across the country, especially in so-called alleged democracies, are doing. And, this is very, very dangerous territory that we're entering, especially a country like France. And this is going to be repeated. And it really, you have to argue, started here.
It is terrifying because what it shows you is that they're undeterred by President Trump's victory. They've done this in other countries, right? They're trying to do this in England. They've done it in Brazil. This is where it's all going, right? Like and I think, really makes me so angry. Mike Ben said something to this effect this morning, where this is the single, if you actually care, if you cared about democracy, this is the single worst thing you could ever do.
Mm-hmm.
Because what it's going to do is going to push everyone to authoritarianism. Because people would prefer that to fake democracy. That is clearly a sham and rigged system for one single small group of elites that benefit from all of it. And luckily, we were able to get a referendum on that in 2024 in this country. That was pretty resounding. But this is gonna destroy entire it's gonna destroy the system, the functional system of government. Actually, by the more that they pull this operation, we know that it's structural. We know that they've been planning this. This is the goal, and they tried to do it to Trump. They just weren't successful. It's really it's a dire time. It's worth noting.
It really is. It really is. And I'm glad to hear you, make the comparison and others to what happened to President Trump. Had he not won the election, Benny, where the end of March, he would be on trial in Washington, D.C. on Jack Smith's J6 case, facing jurors from a city that had voted for Kamala Harris 92%, and very likely, of course, he would have been convicted by this DC jury. You would have had Judge Tanya Chutkin, who did everything she possibly could to act as a rubber stamp for the Biden DOJ and special counsel Jack Smith. So this is what would have happened to Donald Trump and to the country had he not won the election. They would have really pushed ahead with that 4-count indictment and putting him behind bars so he could never try to run again. And also the other goal of crushing the MAGA movement, which was, of course, a key objective in all of the lawfare against the president.
I want to move on, but like it has to be stated: if we don't win, if we don't continue to win, and like we have a very good path going forward, Democrats are going to lose a ton of electoral college votes. The entire cultural shift is against them, but they will put Trump in prison again. They will try. Like if Trump, if we lose in 2028, like Trump's going right back to jail, right? Like that's the goal. Am I wrong on that? Like, do you agree with that?
Well, they definitely will try to, if a Democrat wins next time in 2028, they definitely will try to concoct new criminal charges against the president. Now, keep in mind, I do recall there's been so much that has happened. The J6 indictment was dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can bring it back, bring that. Now, they won't be able to because it was already mostly gutted by the Supreme Court by the time Jack Smith tried to reconfigure it and advance that case forward before the election. So, but we've seen this, and we know it'll be Donald Trump. It will be J.D. Vance. It will be members of his cabinet. They will go back to this whole Signal Gate controversy. They're already trying. They're keeping records here, right? They're taking notes about in the opportunity or the scenario where, of course, Donald Trump leaves office in 2029 and a Democrat takes over, what that means in restarting this lawfare, accelerating it, and finally get what they are desperate to do, which is throw Donald Trump in prison and others who have supported him.
I think that just kind of dovetails really nicely into like the special elections that are going to happen in Florida. We'll have some of the candidates actually on the show later in the show, but also what Tyler's doing and Turning Point Action and Elon in Wisconsin. Like it's not time to like sit back and say, we won, right? And get fat and happy over that. Like it's not. The only way, I tell you what, I'm really glad I don't live close to Julie Kelly because I would be getting very fat with her cooking. I watch her cooking. It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe the ribeye that you had yesterday. That's freaking awesome. Oh my gosh.
And I'm sorry, I did not post pictures of it before we ate it.
Yeah, what's going on with that? You can't do that.
I know. I post it and then, we go somewhere and then the family's here and friends and then you're having some wine and I'm like, oh, I forgot to post like the finished product. It looked a lot better than just the raw prime rib. It was fabulous, by the way. And I want to say, I kept it at 225 for 4 hours. So that's the basis of the reverse sear. Back in the old days, you blasted it and then turned it down. But now Chef Gruel, of course, our friend, has said, keep it at this low temperature and then blast it. But we were gone for the whole afternoon with friends watching sports. And I left it at 225 for like 4 hours. And it was absolutely divine. So next time, I promise I'll post pictures. Try to remember.
Chef Gruel is an absolute legend. They should put him in charge of all school lunches. This is to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to your X feed. So that's one piece of dead meat on your X feed. Here's another. How do you like that? How do you like that one, Julie? We do this professionally. This is quite a statement this morning about what's potentially up against at the FBI, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, and the breathtaking brick wall that they will be running into when they get to the business of potential declassification. I'm just going to read the top line here. Transparency appears to mean the dirty operatives inside and outside the FBI who are still hiding records and info that we want, people demanding outcomes right now, truly have no grasp of how deep the corruption is with 37,000 employee agency, 56 field offices, entrenched, uncooperative bureaucracy. Keep in mind, every field office was involved in the prosecution of J6ers. Do you think Chris Wray would just leave J6 related records on his desk, like for the pipe bomber? I think that there has been a deeply unrealistic expectation about what can be done, like and some huge mistakes that were potentially made in messaging for what can be done, like the first couple days. Obviously, you end by saying if we don't have anything in a year, then it's time to bitch. But right now we have to like grind through the process. Tell me about that process, Julie.
Well, I can only imagine what DOJ, Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, Emil Bove at DOJ, the top three. And then, of course, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are finding out about the DOJ and the FBI. Of course, the FBI is under the Department of Justice. I can only imagine as I put there, the depth of the corruption, the criminality, the depravity of the people who are not just in charge of the FBI over the past decade, but how this permeated all 56 field offices. And we had to look no further than the J6 prosecutions, which Chris Wray routinely bragged involved all 56 field offices. So this is so pervasive. And imagine what Christopher Wray and the heads of these FBI field offices, for example, that James Dennehy, who we saw strutting out of the New York field office after being forced to resign. He had bagpipers playing. He had weeping. It was like the Beatles, right? Or Elvis Presley. Like, that's how he was treated. Those are the sort of people who have been running the FBI for over a decade at least. So imagine what they have discovered. We can only predict the entrenched bureaucracy that is still trying to withhold documents, withhold records, not disclose what they know to leadership. And this is on all levels. And Benny, I do think you're right. There was the expectations are unrealistic. Some of that was created by the Trump administration themselves. This is going to be mind-blowing what they come up with. And in terms of people, I want the Epstein files. And then we've seen other people, I think, make accusations that are not exactly founded, or we don't know, in terms of destroying evidence in the Epstein files. We don't know that that's true. If it is, that requires a lot of investigation, a lot of evidence. You have to interview people. You have to create a case, bring together an indictment, and try to get an indictment from a grand jury in Washington, D.C., very likely. So this is an enormous challenge. And I think for people to say, well, where are the arrests? Where are the charges? We want people in handcuffs. It just does not belie a sincere grasp of the challenge ahead, and then the process that they have to follow to make that actually happen.
There's one thing that you and I have talked about ad nauseum on this program, and we've gotten into every conceivable detail of this, and you're one of the world's greatest historians on it. It was the J6 pipe bomber. You mentioned that here, that Chris Wray ain't just going to leave here's the piece of evidence. Here it is. Here's a piece of evidence, right? Here's the DNA. Here's the shoe, right? He's not gonna, there it is. It's sitting there on the desk. They're not going to do that.
No.
But
they're not.
There was news last week that the J6 pipe bomber, that the January 6 documents have been turned over to Congress. You have a lot of sources inside and outside of this DOJ and in Congress. What are we going to get from this? Can you postulate what's going to happen here? And obviously your friend, Kash Patel, has been very motivated to find out what happened with this J6 pipe bomber. He's spoken a lot about it.
I don't know. I mean, those records were put together over the past 4 years under Christopher Wray and Stephen D'Antuono, who is the Washington FBI field office head. And so we've talked about him. He was also head of the Detroit FBI field office during the Whitmer Fednapping. He's a Democratic operative. He has misled Congress. Will they bring charges against him for that? We don't know. But whatever records are there, that's what's there, right? So they can't manufacture truth, or they can't manufacture evidence that they never sought, or evidence that maybe was moved or destroyed. So there is possibly a chance that they might have to start the pipe bomb investigation from scratch. Why? Because we know now with testimony and records that it was in full force in January and February of 2021, the investigation into the pipe bomber, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. The focus that had been created and emphasized on finding that pipe bomber, all of a sudden, 6-8 weeks after January 6th, the FBI just kind of walked away from it. So why is that? The identity of was the person on the video even the pipe bomber? I mean, you and I have talked about the discrepancies in the timeline, certainly the discrepancies in the video that we see. Stephen D'Antuono misled Congress, said that one of the cell phone providers' data that they turned over was corrupted. The cell phone companies came back and said, none of our data is corrupted. If you want it, we'll give it to you. Was that person even the pipe bomber? Or was it someone or two individuals who maybe found the pipe bombs or, was in the vicinity, especially at the DNC, acting very suspiciously right before the devices were found, that coincided with the first exterior breach and, of course, the joint session of Congress at 1:00. So they might have all the records. They might determine that they have to start from square one. We don't know. We should know soon because we know that those records have been produced to Congress. So hopefully we'll find out something shortly. But that's just one angle of January 6th. The informants, we got a very lackluster report from DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz claiming, a few dozen FBI informants. We know that there were a lot more FBI assets and undercovers from other law enforcement agencies. So this is just scratching the surface of what they are going to be looking at and what probably has been squirreled away in little dark corners of this massive 37,000 employee agency. So I think that cautioning people and asking for patience is appropriate, and reminding everyone of this formidable challenge that they all face at DOJ and FBI right now.
I just had to, Julie, touch on one more J6 pressure point that is quite remarkable given the news cycle that we are currently in with this Judge Boasberg, who miraculously, just like Juan Merchan, gets all the Trump cases. It's incredible. Like just one guy gets them all, right? There are hundreds of judges, thousands of judges, but just one pulls a lot. You got to go to the casino with these guys. Judge Boasberg's the guy who let Ray Epps walk.
Yes.
Yo, that's crazy, Julie. And again, we have demonstrable video evidence that there is one single person who was actually fomenting a riot at the Capitol, and that is Ray Epps. Mm-hmm. I would argue if there's somebody who deserves to catch a case, it's the pipe bomber and Ray Epps, actually. And I wouldn't argue with that, in fact. And yet those are the two people who have been just disappeared, vanished, or were let off, with a slap on the wrist. Now, is this normal for Boasberg? Is this something that he normally did? Is this something that he would regularly do? Let off J6ers? What's going on with this?
No, in fact, Benny, I just posted, I think it was over the weekend, but I'm working on a piece. Hopefully it will be on my Substack Declassified tomorrow about Jeb Boasberg's belief. And he stated this in a 2022 sentencing hearing. He said, there's a strong argument that everyone who was there that day on January 6th should go to jail. Everyone. And this man who was being sentenced was 68-year-old man from Pennsylvania, no criminal record, was inside the Capitol peacefully and pleaded guilty to the parading petty offense, one of the most common misdemeanors. And here was Jeb Boasberg in 2022 saying there's a strong argument all J6, not even J6ers, anyone who was there should go to jail. That means anyone who was there even outside the Capitol. But here he is crying tears, losing sleep over the fact that illegal Venezuelans tied to this very dangerous international criminal racket, TDA, that has been designated a foreign terrorist organization by the Trump administration, so concerned that they are going to be mistreated in an El Salvador prison. So once again, the double standard, you can't make it up. But Jeb Boasberg, through at least 55 J6ers, including those convicted of low-level misdemeanors in federal prison, right? This isn't going to the county jail. This isn't even going to, some white-collar prison camp. This is hard time, including for women who he sent to the Philadelphia, in one case, Philadelphia federal prison for legitimate criminals. Now, did he worry how this woman was going to be treated? No. But here is Jeb Boasberg continually saying in his orders and opinions and court hearings, gee, how are these Venezuelan illegals going to be treated in El Salvador? They're going to be tormented. They're going to be starved. They could be beaten. What did he think was going to happen to Trump supporters with no criminal records going to some of the most dangerous federal prisons in this country.
The banality of evil. The banality of evevil. They actually want their fellow citizens. They view us as less than human. It's so awful. I mean, it's so truly. I mean, it's true. I don't. There's a lot of Americans that I think are wrecking the country. I don't like them at all. But like, as long as you're not convicted on like a terrorism charge, like I want you to live a peaceful, like happy life. I don't wish like a physical harm to you, because you're my fellow American. You're my countrymen. These people do actually like think that half the country, are terrorists, and they wish ill on us. They treat them as less than human. It is a pathology. Okay, to that point, very quickly, Trump saying, "Yo, I'm going to relook into this Ashley Babbitt murder." You said this was Greg Kelly, your friend and mine, the other day on an interview. And he says this cop like is a real piece of work. He left his handgun loaded in a bathroom stall inside of the visitor center with all the little kids in it. And Ashley Babbitt she's 5 feet tall. She was unarmed, and she was summarily murdered without cause, warning, and with the full celebration of the media. And then Nancy Pelosi awards Michael Byrd like a promotion.
That's right.
What should happen next now that Trump's kind of like interested in this?
I think they should reopen the investigation into Michael Byrd. Now, the DOJ, Biden's DOJ, claimed that they performed or opened a civil rights investigation into Michael Byrd. Now, of course, this is the same DOJ running around the country investigating police departments for violating civil rights of their citizens. But when it came to Michael Byrd, they immediately closed the investigation, said there was no evidence that he violated her civil rights, which of course he did, among other things. Michael Byrd, from other investigations and reporting, he has a long record of misconduct, both in uniform and out of uniform. And then, as you recall, Benny, his name was withheld from the media. The media was part of that cover-up for months, even though they knew his name, would not reveal it because of threats against him. Then he was protected, paid for, housed, hidden away at one of the military bases that we paid for because, again, of these threats. And then he got promoted. So I have to believe that the civil rights division of this DOJ will reopen that investigation to the extent that there ever was one, and finally get some justice for Ashley Babbitt and her family.
Yeah, we check. We're no lawyers, Julie, but we check. And there's no statute of limitations on murder in cold blood. So
that's right.
Yeah, so that would be really nice. And Harmeet, Harmeet and Leo Terrell holding up that civil rights division. That's going to be great.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's invite them on, shall we? And let's ask a couple questions. Let me get this drum beat going. Okay. Julie Kelly always giving us good ideas, whether it's cooking, okay, or whether it's how to like make sure that these criminals and murderers are cooked by our justice system. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody follow Julie Kelly. And we expect you, Julie, to wear this shirt next time you're on the program, okay? If you don't wear this shirt next time you're on, you got to have it. We got to have verbal confirmation. Will you be wearing the shirt next time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I promise. I can wear it tomorrow. After I won't look as good as Caroline, but well, for many reasons. But at any rate, I promise I'll be blonder next time.
What an interesting setup. Okay, all right. We love you, Julie. Nothing but hearts.
Love you, Julie.
Okay, we got 2 videos today. I set it up the small channel, the brown one, with 86 or those subs. I got a couple more videos I'm going to play, and when I'm done, I'm going to go over there and see if you guys can type in the chat, and if you guys can go sign in there to just do a test when we're done here. But I got a couple more videos. I don't know what this means. I'll share it. Five days left. And I got a photo I'm going to share. That looks pretty cool there. Okay. That's old. Hang on a second. Okay, this next video is about 7, I think. Dang it.
And a staple in
Maybe
our
not,
house.
I think. 6 minutes.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It's been sort of sad sack over here lately with all the bad news, from bad bills to bad Supreme Court takes to the ATF fabricating evidence in Navy Tate's
New
trial.
lady,
But today I have a
saw-
story with a happy ending, although it is a 10 months after the fact happy ending that comes with a lost house and business, but still a happy ending. This is the story of barbershop owner and veteran Maurice Byrd, who shot a man in self-defense, was charged with murder, and spent 10 months in jail before finally being cleared of any wrongdoing. But before I get into it, this video is brought to you by Blackout Coffee Company. Blackout Coffee is my go-to Second Amendment friendly coffee roaster that has all kinds of great smooth flavors that get me going every morning and sometimes again in the afternoon. I'm a toddler mom, just being real. They also have dedicated partner roasts that donate directly to some of your favorite gun rights groups like the Second Amendment Foundation, FPC, and GOA, so you can know that your money is not only going to a good product, but a good cause. So to get your morning grind and a cup of coffee, tea, or hot chocolate that you can be proud of, go to blackoutcoffee.com/LibertyDoll, and if it is your first time, you can use code LibertyDoll for a one-time 20% discount. On June 8, 2024, police were called to the scene of a shooting in Hatboro, Pennsylvania. They arrived to Razor Reese's Salon and Spa to find 37-year-old Steven Strasberg suffering from 2 gunshot wounds. 42-year-old Byrd, who is an Afghanistan and Iraq veteran, had called police, was ultimately arrested and charged with first-degree murder, third-degree murder, and possessing an instrument of crime. He faced life in prison. And, by the way, the 9mm handgun he used was legally owned. Strasberg lived above Byrd's business and had a contentious relationship with him. In fact, police had been called to the business several times over the previous 2 years for verbal altercations between the two of them. According to Strasberg's cousin, many of these arguments were over a parking spot outside the business. Either way, around 5:45 p.m. on the day of the shooting, Byrd called the police to report that Strasberg was drunk, verbally assaulting him, and using racist slurs. On the call, Byrd also said that Strasberg had grabbed his shirt and was trying to punch him. You can hear it on the 911 call, even Strasberg asking if Byrd was going to shoot him and calling him the N-word. And there is indeed surveillance video of Strasberg chasing Byrd and throwing punches at him. Now, Byrd was older, smaller, is on military disability, and has a bum leg from combat injuries. He warned Strasberg, who did not back off. Thinking he had no other choice, he pulled out his gun and fired 7 shots, hitting Strasberg twice. The footage shows him shooting Strasberg, then putting down his gun and backing up to wait for the police. The police showed up and arrested Byrd, and due to the charges, he was not offered bail. Now, Pennsylvania does have stand your ground laws, but they require you to try and retreat from an unarmed person if you're in public. Strasberg was unarmed, and they were technically in public. During the trial, prosecution argued that the defense was trying to paint Strasburg as a maniac drunk, but it turns out that he did have 3 previous DUI convictions, including a vehicular homicide charge that he went to prison for. According to neighbors, he had a long history of using racial slurs, especially towards Byrd. Byrd, meanwhile, had no prior record and also was an adjunct college professor. And apparently, because of his leg, he has trouble running and wasn't able to get away from Strasburg, at least not fast enough, as the guy did land at least one of his punches. The footage also shows the pair struggling over the gun. The prosecution also argued that Byrd's warning to Strasburg was instead a verbal threat and amounted to premeditated murder. They claimed that Byrd had attempted to lure Strasburg into the shop for the altercation. The same cousin that I mentioned earlier claimed that Strasburg was afraid of Byrd because Byrd had left angry notes on his door. I don't know why he would then confront him and threaten to punch him and rant and rave in front of the shop, but okay. And the police had previously advised them to stay away from each other. Either way, if you have a disability that prevents you from retreating, someone is threatening you and then grabs you and punches you, I feel like that is a good argument for self-defense. And regarding Pennsylvania's law, how are you supposed to try and retreat if you can't physically retreat? But it turns out that the jury saw it the same way, and after nearly 10 months in jail, losing his business and home while in prison, and a 4-day trial, he was cleared of all charges. Byrd says that he now plans to go to law school to help other people who may get caught up in similar circumstances, having learned firsthand that many people don't understand the legal system, the legal process, or even sometimes the charges against them. Personally, I don't think that he should have been in jail to begin with, whether awaiting trial or not. I don't think that the charges should have gotten to that point at all. I don't think he should have been charged in the first place, but I am not a prosecutor in Pennsylvania. But if nothing else, this case does prove the importance of the Second Amendment and self-defense. All right, folks, that is it for this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you are new here, drop a comment down below and ring that.
So yeah, I just started following her. I think on YouTube. Okay, one more I'm going to do. About 15, I think it's 15 minutes. Then we'll go over to the Brown just to do a test. About 13 minutes.
It's the worst thing that Trump has ever done for the history of the United States. So all kinds of yelling happening about online right now. So we wanted to ask Carol Roth, finance expert, author of the great book, You Will Own Nothing, to join us now to talk about all of this and more. Carol, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, nice to see you guys. It's been a little bit.
It has. So help us sort through this because, I mean, I think this deserves some nuance here. And I think most Americans watching right now are like, how is this going to affect my family? How is this going to affect my ability to send my kids to college, put food on the table? If you watch Fox News, this is the greatest thing for America. CNN says this is the worst thing for America. Where do you come down on this?
So I come down in where everybody's going to hate me because I do live in a place of nuance. So I'll just start with that. I think it's important to talk about these tariffs in context. And the context was that coming out of the last administration, people had absolutely been decimated. Their personal balance sheets had been crushed by inflation. We know that they took on record debt. Their savings were down. And they voted overwhelmingly for President Trump because they wanted him to bring some stability and certainty to pricing and to the economy. They wanted things like deregulation and certainty in the tax code and incentives to put forth more growth in the economy and be able to have a clear path. And I think that part of the challenge is that the tariffs have now come out in front of many of these things in a very chaotic and, in my opinion, poorly communicated fashion. So that is setting people, kind of on a path of uncertainty and showing up in terms of pessimism instead of optimism, and lower consumer confidence and business confidence, which can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think the other thing about the tariffs, and there are places where, I can argue that tariffs make all of the sense in the world. Places like securing our national defense. We want to be able to produce ammunition here and ships and things that deal with maybe technology. There are places where it makes sense. And there are places where it's never going to make sense because of our regulatory environment, our cost structure, both in terms of labor and energy. There are certain things that we're just never going to manufacture here. So I think the expectation was that the tariffs were going to be more focused and surgical. And had they been, okay, we're going to really focus in on these key areas, I don't think you would be having these issues. But when it's poorly communicated, when it's broad across the board, and then yesterday, when you get this proclamation that they are reciprocal, yet the math is not based on any sort of reciprocity. It's not reciprocity based on a product category. Hey, you're charging us this much for rice, we're going to charge you this much for rice. It's not even based on reciprocity in terms of you're charging us this much as a country on average, we're going to do this. It's based on some sort of calculation that is the trade deficit divided by the imports of the country. And that is kind of numbers out of nowhere. And by the way, even if you're not charging us tariffs, there's a 10% across the board minimum. So it makes no sense in terms of this concept of reciprocity and how all of this was calculated. So I think that's part of the frustration. It's not that, a specific, tariffs are bad or tariffs aren't. It's the approach, it's the communication, and frankly, just a lot of the conflicting statements around tariffs that I think is causing a lot of the consternation. And unfortunately, it's become very politicized. Depending on which side of the aisle you're on, you're going to make an argument in many cases that you would never make if it was happening on the other side of the aisle.
Right. And as you point out, since it's not a one-to-one reciprocity, you charge us 10%, so we'll charge you that much. That opens the door for negotiation with dozens of countries. So now each one of us has to come back. And does the Trump administration, you think, even have the bandwidth for that? Is there any possibility that this is just an opening salvo?
I do think, and I certainly at this point hope, that this is more art of the deal. And what happens is that there are probably, in my guess, a small concession made somewhere with a handful of key players, and then everything across the board kind of falls from there. Everybody declares massive victory, and all the people who've been making arguments that are now going to end up in conflict with that resolution, suddenly those arguments go out the window. So that is the hope. But the longer term concern, and I think you can see this in the markets, is how long does this last? Because the Trump team seems very committed to this. And then also just the general uncertainty. It's very difficult for businesses, big and small alike, to make decisions about investment, about hiring, about running their country when things change on a dime. It's just not a constructive environment. And this is something that impacts everybody. So if we're going to talk about making America great again, and we're going to talk about America first, that needs to be part of the equation. You cannot just look at one specific piece and not see how it, relates to every other aspect of the economy. And so, if you are a company that all of a sudden decoupled from China in the last couple of years because you thought you were doing the right thing, because we said that, China is not our friend, and you moved your manufacturing to Vietnam, now you just found out that you're going to get hit with a 46% tariff. No good deed goes unpunished. It's very difficult to operate under those kinds of constraints.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, the people who hate these tariffs are saying that this is going to collapse a number of countries' currencies. that there's going to be a high rate of panic. And when investors sense panic, they kind of run. They don't walk, they run. The US dollar sank more than 2% against the euro, the Japanese yen, the Swiss franc, oil and gold both fell. But also we saw, gold prices surging. So I'm not exactly sure where some of this is shaking out. But it seems to be just a lot of uncertainty. And there seems to be, to your point about the communications piece, kind of haphazardness as it relates to some world leaders, like Trump cozying up to Mark Carney in Canada. And I don't understand that, where it's like, I know there's this weird sort of throw things at a wall appeal. It seems like right now, cozying up to Canada, cozying up to Mark Carney, liberal in Canada, and allowing them to kind of get off the hook and then kind of walking it back and then going back again. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now. I can speak to people who've had stuff stuck at the border, like the Canadian customs. It's just shoved there, stuck there. They don't know what to do right now.
Well, I know small businesses who even before yesterday were getting absolutely crushed. We had a 20% tariff already on China. And normally it would take, to say, bring in like $500,000 worth of goods. It might cost you four figures to bring that container in. But when you now have a 20% tariff on top of those goods, it costs six figures to bring that container in. And no, China is not paying for that. That is the small business paying for it. So either they put that out to their customers, which ends up making it more expensive for individuals, or they try to eat that. And over time, it ends up putting that company out of business. And that is American jobs. It's also customers from overseas who are bringing their money into the United States to buy the company's products. So again, everything is interconnected, and there isn't enough thought given as how does this impact Main Street, even something like the stock market, because there are going to be a lot of people who don't care about Wall Street and say, well, these fat cats, they've been getting rich. But again, that comes back to Main Street, because when people's 401ks and pensions are going down, they feel less wealthy, they make fewer purchases. That impacts the ability, again, to hire and invest, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And again, in context, we are in a position, a very precarious financial position that the Biden administration left us in. So if we all of a sudden end up in a recession because we're not getting receipts from capital gains on the stock market, and we're not getting, the same kind of bump of growth of the economy, and we don't take in as much in revenue at the government level, that could actually explode the deficit to GDP and put us into a debt spiral. So all of these things, again, are interconnected. And Clayton, I want to point out one thing, because you said something in sort of a passing, and I don't even know if you realized how important it was, but the dollar is down, the 10-year yield is down, and these are actually objectives of the Trump administration. It's something that they have been trying to affect. So there's part of me that believes that that is part of the reason we're seeing this, heavy-handed approach, is to get these down so that we can have some sort of grand Mar-a-Lago accord and reset the financial landscape. Because right now, we cannot go on paying more for interest than we can for our defense.
Hold on. So there's been a lot of speculation. You bring up a great point, but there's been a lot of speculation that this is an intentional move. We know the 10-year yield. Yes. We talked about that yesterday on the show. They're trying to get that number down, right? You're right about that. But there's been a lot of speculation. They're trying to, in many ways, torpedo the US dollar.
Correct.
And maybe even push it back to a gold standard once again, using this as a way, sort of, I don't know, like a Trojan horse plan here. Do you buy into that?
So if you go back and you listen to Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and some of the things that he said before he was part of the Trump administration, there is a specific speech that he gave at the Manhattan Institute, I believe, last June. And he's talking about the fact that, we are at the precipice of this new global order, and he sees that there is going to be some sort of a reset needed, and that he would like to be a part of it. So he's already been sniffing around that. He's also, if you looked at comments that he made probably a month or a month and a half ago, he said he was going to, monetize our assets better, which led many of us to speculate that, he was talking about writing up gold and increasing it on our balance sheet to at least, current pricing, if not, having some sort of an accord that makes it higher. Now, he's since said, oh, that's not what he meant. But just because a politician say that's not what they meant doesn't mean that that's not what they meant.
Right.
So there are deeper things for sure in play here. But my opinion is that from a choreography standpoint, I still think that not causing the chaos and panic, and you're doing the things that will unleash the growth side of the equation from the deregulation standpoint, the tax certainty standpoint and the like, is the right way to then also be able to have the latitude to do these other things. And that this order of operations may seem trivial, but based on the tight financial situation that we have, it's very, very critical.
Well, thank you so much for your insight, because if you follow Carol on X, she's a voice of reason.
All right. I haven't played that channel in a while. They do a good job on their intel. Well, at least I got get back and doing shows, but no camera. I hope I get another channel working just in case. But it looks like this is the main one. I'm going to go see if the Brown channel works now. And I'll be back at after 4 o'clock tomorrow sometime, unless something develops in the morning. And yep. God bless everybody. Love you all. Have a good work week. Hopefully our day will come. But we don't know what day that's going to be. So hopefully we'll get the Brown channel working. We'll head over there for a minute. About 2 minutes, head over there. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe out there and warm.